I'm like actually kind of really excited to see what it's going to look like right now, especially because now you also get to see Masquerade. I hope we finally get to see Masquerade on the field, because as much of a great Pokemon as it was for a lot of people, I feel like we haven't really gotten to see it in action. So what you'll see on screen right now is going to be Pablo's team. It'll be that Tyranitar, Volcarona, Garchomp with Bright Powder.
Yeah, love that.
Goldengo, Murkrow, Meowscarada. Alicia is going to be running Maushold, Garchomp, Amoonguss, Murkrow, Hydreigon, and Goldengo. So a little bit more standard, but I do love that Maushold is a popular Pokemon.
Yeah, and looking at closer at Alicia's team, I mean, one of the interesting things is there's a lot of setup here. Goldengo is running Nasty Plot, Garchomp is running Swords Dance, and a lot of the time when you want to go for those setup moves, you need a partner Pokemon that's going to enable you to activate those. So often you want redirection, and on Alicia's team, you've got two Pokemon with redirection options, you know, Maushold with Follow Me, and then Amoonguss with something like Rage Powder as well. So it does give her a lot of options and kind of, I suppose, breathing room to be able to click those buttons a little more safely. Obviously, sometimes you can go for those hard reads, the critical moments where you get the boost up and then suddenly your opponent's on the back foot and is in fear of your Garchomp or your Goldengo. And then at the same time, you know, you've got Pokemon like the Murkrow that we've seen being an excellent support Pokemon. Things like Tailwind, Haze, Foul Play, all of these moves can be great. And also Torment on this particular Murkrow, which can be really good when you're looking at Pokemon that are, you know, locked in with something like a Choice Band or a Choice Scarf. You're not going to be able to go for the same move twice.
I love that so much, and I genuinely love the fact that Murkrow has access to all of these moves and is such a weird, like, sort of utility and pivotal Pokemon. But like you pointed out, like, Alicia's team is really scary once it gets set up, and if you can recognize the fact that, hey, Maushold is the one that's redirecting all that damage to its family, like, then you know, you've sort of got like this idea of like, hey, if I can stop this Maushold, then she's going to be in a tougher spot to set up all of her Pokemon. But we're actually going to see Amoonguss and Goldengo. So Amoonguss, another very popular redirect next to Goldengo. Right here, Murkrow and Meowscarada.
Brilliant call coming out from Pablo. Meowscarada being grass type is not going to be affected by the Rage Powders coming out from something like the Amoonguss here, and powerful knockoff is going to be able to deal with that Goldengo on Alicia's side. Again, you know, the Goldengo, it's carrying the Citrus Berry, it's not Focus Sash or anything, so I think it's wise who's going to jump into a Protect straight away here and see if maybe Alicia's got a way to deal with this Meowscarada.
And Murkrow going to do what it does best right now in this format, as it sets up a Tailwind to give the speed advantage here to Pablo. Meowscarada going for that knockoff, but like you had pointed out, that Protect and make sure that Goldengo does not take any damage this turn. Amoonguss also safe realizing, hey, nothing's going to happen to me if I redirect, but Pollen Puff, one of those.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my god, the super effective damage here is going to knock out that Meowscarada. There is no Focus Sash here on this Meowscarada. It is actually going to be a Choice Band, so that knockoff would have done some extra damage here, but Pollen Puff, a fantastic choice here from Alicia. You know, one of those, if you hit your allies, it heals them. If you hit your opponents, it knocks them out just like it did right now.
I am sorry, but since when has Amoonguss been able to get Okos? Like, this Pokemon is so disruptive at the best of times. I'm now terrified. That was amazing, just being able to get the solid one-hit KO. Support your Goldengo. Yes, you have got Tailwind up on Pablo's side of the field, but, you know, now Goldengo's in a better position. Volcarona, however, is a Pokemon you still have to contend with. It can go for those Fire-type moves. That's something Goldengo doesn't want to take. And if you take a look at the Goldengo on Alicia's side, it does have access to the Flying Terra-type. This could be a good time to go for that, so you're not going to take any super effective damage from a Fire-type move. Honestly, I'm still shooketh about this Amoonguss.
About the Amoonguss, yeah, where it's just like Pollen Puff and you get knocked out.
And
like,
goodbye, Meowscarada. Like, yeah, if that Pokemon wasn't annoying or fearful enough, it's just now elevated itself to a whole new level.
And that's before we get its Paradox forms too.
Oh, don't please no. Brute Bonnet does not need to happen in this world. Volcarona, speaking of Paradox Pokemon, has been a big inspiration for a lot of them. Is going to go for that Fiery Dance into the Goldengo, thanks to the Terra type of Flying on Goldengo. Is going to be able to take this much better. Murkrow is going to follow up with the Foul Play, however, but of course it's not an attacking Pokemon. You know, on the physical attack side, it does go on the special side, so it's going to be able to not take too much damage from this. Again, the Flying type really helping it out. And of course, Goldengo can still click Make It Rain. It's not going to deal too much damage to both the Pokemon on the opposing side, however.
Yeah, I really love that. Now here we see the opposite end of what Pollen Puff can do, where Amoonguss is like, hey, you know all that damage you just took? How about we just erase all of that? We heal you up here instead of, you know, knocking you out. And it sort of makes it feel that, like, hey, for Pablo, even if he does double down to that Goldengo, if you're not taking care of Amoonguss, which is also a threat, then all of a sudden Amoonguss can just rectify that damage, just be like, hey, we'll rewind time, we'll just make it that it never happened. And that Flying Terra type, just a really, like, sort of popular secondary choice for a lot of Goldengos, where you get rid of a lot of its weaknesses, because all of a sudden it's sort of untouchable now here. Like, sure, you could do Steel Terra type to give it that extra boost and Make It Rain, but if your Goldengo that gets knocked out, there's really no point in it.
Yeah, that's true. And Goldengo's got going for the Make It Rain, getting the drop on its special attack is going to put it in a difficult situation. It might be that Amoonguss is going to have to support it out here, going for that Rage Powder, drawing in the attacks on Pablo's side of the field from that Murkrow in particular. Fiery Dance from Volcarona is going to come out here. It is going to connect down onto that Amoonguss. Doesn't quite get the one-hit KO against it, but does put it in a precarious situation. Of course, the key thing here is the special attack boost that Volcarona is getting. Foul Play's enough to pick up the KO against it. Goldengo is going to be in a position to go for some damage here with another Make It Rain, potentially down onto both these opposing Pokemon, but we saw how little damage it's actually dealing. I think the trade-off here doesn't even get the KO on Murkrow. Unfortunately, Goldengo just isn't able to pack the punch it needs to at this point for Alicia.
Yeah, and what's so interesting too is that we saw that the Rocky Helmet was able to at least do a little bit of damage to that Murkrow as well before that Amoonguss got knocked out. And actually, Alicia is going to be matching with her own Murkrow here. Like you had pointed out before, it does have something like Torment, which could stop double, like the same attack from being used twice in a row here. And with something like Volcarona, where I think Fiery Dance might be like your biggest sort of choice here. I mean, there's a lot of other things you could use, but aren't actually damage dealing. Murkrow, I think, also in a spot where you could just match a Tailwind right now and then have the speed advantage for later on. Goldengo able to protect if it really needs to. So actually, I think Alicia has a little bit more pivot options here than she did before.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, again, now if you're Pablo, you're going to be wary that Torment could be coming your way. You're going to start switching things up here. Instead, I think just going straight for that Fiery Dance. You know, you're at +2 special attack now, I believe, from the Fiery Dances, so you're going to be able to deal some good damage. But of course, Murkrow going for that Haze is going to reset the special attack drops on the Goldengo and remove the special attack boost that Volcarona had. So it's quite wise going for this Fiery Dance, actually. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. It's going to be able to get the special attack boost, but even if there's another Haze, we know the Volcarona can deal with that Murkrow on the following turn.
Oh, that Murkrow's, Pablo's Murkrow doing foul play into Alicia's Murkrow. That also just barely moved. But finally, this Goldengo is able to pick up that knockout here on the Murkrow. Does some considerable damage to that Volcarona as well. Again, thanks to that Haze eliminating all of the stat changes. So those plus special attacks and those minus special attacks have all just been negated. But Volcarona now in a spot where it's able to eat its berry, get that Citrus Berry health back here. The Tailwind now petering out for Pablo's side, allowing actually Alicia maybe to get a speed advantage here, as Tyranitar is the last Pokemon of choice here for Pablo. Gonna bring in that sand as well, boosting its own special defenses, but making sure it does residual sand damage to everybody else.
This is where things get interesting now as well, because Murkrow's in a situation where it might kind of be forced to keep going for that Haze, you know, resetting the Goldengo, reducing the Volcarona again, but then at the same time, this Tyranitar is just going to be able to go for some big damage. You know, you got a Flying type Goldengo and a Flying type in the form of Murkrow. Rock Slide's going to be hitting really, really hard, as long as it can connect, of course.
Yeah, and the fact that Tyranitar's Terra type for Pablo is also Rock, which means
even more damage.
Yeah, the fact if Rock Slide can connect, which apparently is a problem for some of these matches lately, then both of Alicia's Pokemon are in a rough spot, because that is sort of like the payoff that you have to realize with Terra typing. Like, you can protect the Goldengo from some things, but you can't protect it from everything. And Rock Slide is definitely one of the things you can't protect it from, unless you use Protect.
That's one way, but it's really only a matter of time at that point. You're only stalling things out for a second. Murkrow is able to capitalize though, thanks to his Prankster ability, getting that Tailwind up nice and speedy on Alicia's side. Volcarona can go for the Fiery Dance, obviously going to the protective Goldengo, so eyes really do turn to that Tyranitar to see if it can deal with this opposing Murkrow. Rock Slide connecting into the Protect, but does it find itself on the Murkrow?
Okay, it does. Oh, man, this is like actually one of those moments where, like, all of a sudden, because of the events from earlier today, we actually have to think
we
about,
have
like,
no faith in accuracy right now.
If it's the spread move, White Guard's not the only thing that's going to stop it now. It's just the old Pokemon's, like, accuracy and dodgeability, apparently. But Goldengo will have to take a little bit of damage from that Sandstorm. So, you know, still taking some damage even behind a Protect. Volcarona also as well. But Garchomp is going to be the last Pokemon here for Alicia, and Garchomp is having a fun time.
Yeah, Garchomp's sitting in a good position here. Again, we've seen a lot of utility with setup moves, for example, but I think at this point, Garchomp just needs to be able to deal the big damage. You can go for something like an Earthquake. Goldengo's not going to be affected by it, whereas Volcarona and Tyranitar are going to get hit by that powerful Earthquake. At the same time, if you're Alicia and you want to play very bravely, you could even potentially click that Swords Dance button. Just make sure that you have got the attack boost ready and primed so that you can get a double KO when you are able to connect the Earthquake. But knowing that you have that speedier side, you can just go for it here, pick up some good damage onto that Tyranitar, and I believe the KO, not quite, on the Volcarona.
not able to pick up again, but because of that tailwind earlier, Mirko's last sort of move before it got knocked out, that Make It Rain is going to be first here, knocking out the Tyranitar and that Volcarona. I'm not going to lie, I was actually really stressed for a minute because I did see that Pablo clicked Will-O-Wisp, and I went, oh no, speaking of moves that have a high chance of missing, I like, every time I see Will-O-Wisp, I'm just like, oh no, my heart just stops a little bit. But I love the way that Alicia played that, right? She was able to just really sort of capitalize on, one, her Goldango's Terra type, and then just able to be like, hey, I know that your Murkrow set up Tailwind, but if I can put my Murkrow in a spot where on that switch and I'm able to just capitalize and click Tailwind right when I need it the most, Garchomp just comes in and clean sweeps everything.
Yeah, she was able to really work around the Goldango in that entire game, you know, not only supporting it with this Terra type, going for that flying type, knowing that a lot of damage was going to come its way thanks to its Ghost and Steel typing, and just preserving a little bit was excellent. At the same time, wisely protecting it in the face of that Meowscarada, where Amoonguss was then able to get the one-hit KO, which I'm still really, like, I'm scarred for life at the moment. That's really good information to know as well, that it has that capability, you know, going ahead to something like the San Diego Regionals. If you're running Meowscarada, please beware of the Mushroom. It's going to be dealing a lot of damage to you, but at the same time as well, supporting that Goldango with the haze from the Murkrow, allowing it to get that special attack drop reset, I think just does show that Alicia, you know, really went all in on the Goldango, knowing that it was going to be the critical Pokemon here. If you're Pablo, however, you have utility to deal with it. You have your own choice specs Goldango, and you can go for some big damage with something like a Shadow Ball into it. You can deal damage with Meowscarada. Garchomp can deal with it when it's on the ground. Volcarona can deal with it, you know, even when it's in the sky. Those fiery dance can be really, really strong. But at the same time, if Alicia's using those Pokemon to support it in such a strong way, it's difficult for Pablo to get an edge in, basically, and you need that door to open and to take the opportunity when it presents itself.
Yeah, I think at this point, right, you're looking at Alicia's team, and it's all of a sudden, it's just like, you have one or two heavy hitters, and everything else is supporting that, and
yeah,
I mean, we weren't really expecting, like, the Amoonguss to be, like, one of those, which is surprising given its, like, previous roles, but Amoonguss and Goldango, you know what, if it ain't broke, you know, you don't have to worry about fixing it, but Murkrow and Volcarona as well out on the field. We did see that Pablo left behind the Meowscarada, like, after that sort of trauma-inducing in a way for like the Amoonguss, like getting that Pollen Puff down into it. But now Pablo's kind of in a spot where speed is at his beck and call.
Yeah, I would almost have liked to see Meowscarada in the back, to be honest, because I do think it has a good call in this matchup. However, Volcarona is a really great adjustment for the lead here. You're able to go for some Fire-type damage into that opposing Amoonguss and try and deal with it early on. You know, Fiery Dance just going to be able to... We didn't see it get the one-hit KO against it, but possibly if you follow up with something from the Murkrow, you might be able to deal with it. You know that Make It Rain isn't going to be dealing super effective damage at this point, obviously, to either of the Pokemon on the field. You're going to be able to take one of those moves. But Amoonguss has an answer to everything, apparently. It's going to go for this Dark Terror here, and this makes it a lot more difficult to deal with. It's not going to take super effective damage from the Volcarona here if it goes for that Fire Dance.
So Goldango going to be protecting on this turn, as that Amoonguss, which did go for that Terra Dark type, now is going to be the target of a Fiery Dance. Goes, hey, you know what? Not anymore. Is going to be taking that very nicely. The Volcarona does get that special attack boost here, and Murkrow going for that foul play into that Goldango spot. But Amoonguss actually in a fantastic spot here, as it is going to be able to go for a Spore, put things to sleep. That Volcarona going to be forced to take a sleep turn next turn, is going to be in a very vulnerable position. And I really love that Alicia was able to recognize, hey, my Amoonguss is in a lot of danger, so let's fix that.
Yeah, again, Amoonguss being such a pivotal Pokemon here, not only from the support that it's giving Goldango here, you know, you can go for some redirection and things like this as well, but the Spore is critical. The Volcarona was the big threat, and you now know that you can't go for the flying type on that Goldango, for example, because Amoonguss has taken the Terra option for game 2 here for Alicia, so you need to preserve the Goldango in another way, and what better way than to put your opponent's Pokemon to sleep?
I kind of miss Spore, because I actually haven't seen it in a long time, like in terms of like watching people ladder.
Yeah.
But Goldango in a free spot here to go for Nasty Plot. If it gets foul played here from that Murkrow, it's in a lot of danger. But Murkrow going for that foul play. Yep, get straight to the Goldango. Doesn't do as much damage as expected here as Spore from Amoonguss. Free to go into that Murkrow now. So the question is from next turn then, is if that Volcarona is going to wake up. We just saw it take its necessary sleep turn, but Goldango was able to set itself up, so does have to be careful, because now if you're looking at the team sheet and see that Struggle Bug does hit both, like if this Volcarona wakes up, you might be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, Rage Powder going to draw in the attacks from that opposing Murkrow here, and and you know, now it's all on Volcarona. It does stay asleep at this point, so Goldango in a great position, using that boost that it got from Nasty Plot to its special attack, able to go for this Shadow Ball. It is going to be able to connect down on the Volcarona. It's not enough to get the one-hit KO, but I'm sure it's going to be able to be dealt with in the following turn. Merkur, of course, it can still go for those foul plays. It's doing a little bit of damage, but of course, foul play only really getting the benefits of something like a Sword Stance boost with the attack going up. But you know, special attack is where Goldango really comes through, so that's why it wants to go for that boost, and that does just allow it, even though it is going to be taking still good damage from foul play. You know, a couple of those will be able to get the KO. It just means that you're able to not have to worry so much about it. And now Amoonguss having put the Murkrow to sleep as well means Goldango is just able to make it rain all day long.
I think it's kind of wild that like Amoonguss is still saying, hey, I'm still a threat here offensively and defensively. Going for another Rage Powder here as a Volcarona now. Murkrow is actually is going to take its sleep turn again this turn. Volcarona though finally able to wake up, is going to be able to land Struggle Bug into both Pokemon here. Does super effective damage to Amoonguss, but Amoonguss takes it like a champ here. Goldango just brushes it off. Is going to drop the special attack here, so that Nasty Plot a little bit negated, alongside like the Make It Rains that it has been like using. Not able to pick up a knockout here. That 1 HP, so actually that Struggle Bug probably really helping that Volcarona out here. It's just sort of been crazy how those one drop stages, or just even just a little bit, have helped out these Pokemon so much.
Yeah, that's really true. And, you know, just being able to, you know, mess around with the stats of your opponent, that does give you the advantage in many situations. And Moon is just going for Rage Powder once again, drawing in the attacks here. Murkrow is still going to be taking a little bit of a nap in this game 2 here for Pablo. Pablo really needs the Pokemon to wake up and start supporting. Struggle Bug is going to be able to get the KO on that pesky Amoonguss. Goldango, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, going to be able to take that really well. And anything coming out from Goldango, who is going to be able to deal with that opposing Volcarona here on that 1 HP remaining. At the same time, that Murkrow isn't exactly healthy either, so potentially some good rolls coming out from Make It Rain are going to be able to get a double KO here for Alicia.
Yeah, and if you're that Amoonguss though, like getting knocked out this turn, you have no regrets. You did your best now on the field, and I think honestly that Amoonguss did everything that it could in its power to just sort of be a nuisance to both of Pablo's Pokemon, allowing your Goldango to get a double knockout on a Pokemon that normally would just take like regular like resist damage from that Make It Rain, and now you're forcing Pablo to reveal the last 2 Pokemon that like he has, and now Alicia's actually still in a really good spot where, hey, if you're able to if you're able to like help out like that Goldango, but this Garchomp, which we had pointed out, the Bright Powder, so that lowers your accuracy. The Sandstream is going to bring in the Sandstorm for this Garchomp. This Garchomp has Sand Veil.
This is like the most evasive Garchomp right now. Sand Veil stacked with Bright Powder means it has a lot of potential to avoid a lot of attacks coming its way. And with the way things have been playing out today, there's a high chance that it's going to be able to dodge a couple here. That's the benefit that you have with Tyranitar and Garchomp, 2 Pokemon that are as old as time when it comes to VGC. They are absolute champions in what they do. Tyranitar now in a good position to go for something like a Rock Slide here, just to deal with that opposing Murkrow that, you know, wants to be able to go for things like Foul Play. That's going to be a bit disruptive to something like the Garchomp, and obviously can manipulate the speed on Alicia's side of the field. Goldango not in such a great position now that it's still on the ground. Earthquake's going to hit hard. Tailwind is going to boost up on Alicia's side as Goldango just keeps making it rain.
It actually does some pretty damage, and more importantly, it actually hits the Garchomp.
It does actually.
I think that's going to be more surprising now when things hit the Garchomp versus the opposite way around. The Murkrow takes this Rock Slide like a champ, and so does the Goldango. Murkrow we had seen before with Alicia was also able to, I think it had Haze as well, so is at least able to like negate all of like the fact that, you know, the Make It Rain minuses on there has negated its sort of damage output. Double Rock Slide here from Pablo, which I think is really interesting because now that Tailwind is on Alicia's side, those flinches that you might be looking for won't be there quite as much, and Murkrow is still here on the field. Yeah,
I have to credit Murkrow. I really actually thought it would go down, particularly to a double Rock Slide here. But again, the Eviolite really paying off. You know, when you're a Pokemon that still has the potential to evolve, holding Eviolite, boosting up your defenses does give you that extra bit of bulk. It is going to go for that Haze, like you mentioned there, Regina. Going to be resetting the special attack drops on that opposing Goldango here. So Alicia able to go for the Make It Rain, is able to get the KO on Garchomp.
It still hits Garchomp
with a crit.
Oh my god, that's like, okay, so this is what we're looking at, right? So we're looking at Bright Powder, Sandvale, Garchomp. It takes a critical hit from Make It Rain. Like, that is a stack of things like just sort of going against you. I mean, the crunch from Tyranitar sure is going to knock out the Goldango, but Alicia still has her Pokemon in the back. And if it's that Garchomp, all you do is click whatever button you want. You can click whatever button you want on your Murkrow too. If it's oh my god, it still survives.
Still there.
Like, honestly, it's like at this point, right? It's just sort of an uphill battle for this Tyranitar. There's no more speed advantage for you. The Garchomp is at full health, and so, you know, between Murkrow and Garchomp, like, what really can you do?
Yeah, and that's the thing, Garchomp has the speed advantage as well. You know, checking out Pablo's Tyranitar, it is carrying Ice Punch. That's something that, you know, Garchomp being Dragon and Ground type doesn't want to take at all, but it has the speed advantage. It can go for the Earthquake, get the KO, and take this set 2-0 for Alicia. I mean, what an amazing kind of synergy on that team. I'm really in awe of a lot of the things that Alicia did here in terms of protecting the Pokemon that needed to be done. That Goldengo had all the support it needed to. Even in that game too, you know, Pablo was able to put Pokemon in positions that could deal significant damage. But the Amoonguss was just able to negate the opportunities that Pablo had that we were talking about. Needed to be the adjustment from game 1 to game 2 and just stop Pablo from being able to deal any damage. Excellent play from Alicia.
I really, really love that because if you're looking at like that Amoonguss we've talked about before, like for anybody who's played any sort of VGC in the past like year alone or so, right? Amoonguss is such a pain to deal with.
It is. You have to have an option.
It's so terrifying. Like, you know, we saw game 1, it just knocked out that Meowscarada immediately, and I think I kind of respect Pablo for just maybe like deciding like, hey, I don't want to risk that again, because that Amoonguss in game 2 was just as much of a threat as was game 1. Like, oh my gosh.
In a different way. I mean, I've never seen an offensive Amoonguss like that in game 1. So in game 1 it showed that it has that pressure, but then in game 2 it went really more traditional, I want to say. Rage Powder Spore, that's what I like to see. But a dark type Amoonguss as well, something, you know, again, that's new with this particular format with terrestrialization. I think just, again, allowed it that defensive capability. We see it often switch out, use its regenerator ability to get a little bit of HP, but when you're able to take the hits as well as it was with that Dark Terror, just made it so difficult to deal with, particularly when all your Pokemon were asleep.
Yeah, I love whenever she switched in her Murkrow, it was like at that exact moment that I needed to, right? She sets up Tailwind, gets the Haze, and then all of a sudden, I actually think that particular turn specifically from the Tailwind into the Haze, a little bit of luck on her side with surviving like those 2 rock sides. I mean, obviously the EVO light helps a lot with that, but I think it's also just one of those like, oh, like this is why we run this, because I know Covert Cloak was a really popular item for the first time for Murkrow, but I mean, that I think had me like a little bit like sitting up straight, like on my edge of my seat, because the fact that Bright Powder and Sandvale, that's what I expect things to start
particularly in an open team sheet. Can you imagine reading that and just looking at your opponent like, oh please no, not this? Like, it's a bit different when it's like closed team sheet and you don't necessarily know, and it's a little bit, you know, you find out or you don't.